Here we go. Getting her going. Episode 1. Welcome in, everybody, to the inaugural episode of Blazing Banter with Fire Steve. And we got our funky tunes. So yeah, welcome to the very first episode of Blazing Banter with Fire Steve. It's been a long time coming. I feel like, the procrastination has got the best of me. I've wanted to do this for quite some time. Actually, I think I talked about doing this before May Long last year.
Yeah, it's been a while, Steve.
It has. It's, you've heard me talk about it quite a bit. So, we, and this all just came up all of a sudden. So introducing my guest, Sask Rescue Guy. Welcome in.
I think number one, Steve.
You're number one.
I'm number one this time.
Well, hey, you did manufacture me a rescue pickle. Yeah. So I had to bring you in.
Yeah, rescue pickle is sitting on the shelf. I am coming to service trip up there in about 3 weeks, so we will be hand delivering your rescue pickle.
Sweet. I'm so excited. And well, like I said, there's definitely going to be some content had in that time frame as well.
I think so.
But yeah, no, this is something, like I said, I've been wanting to launch a podcast for some time. I think the initial plan was before fire season kicked off last year. My plan was to have something out before May Long weekend was kind of my time frame. But of course, we know how the 2023 wildfire season ended up, and just between being busy on fire calls and generating content, because that became kind of a mainstay for myself, and that at that point was just keeping people informed.
Yeah, I feel you on that one, Steve. Last year was an incredibly busy year for us as well here in Saskatchewan. We had a pretty active wildfire season. I come from the wildfire side originally. And then as well as we had the T-Rex program launch here in Saskatchewan for 2023. So that was a government grant for rescue tools and training. So that kept us pretty busy through 2023.
Well, and it's you can see that there's a lot more pressure being put on small town departments now. Like I said, we're responding to a heck of a lot more calls. I know, like I said, I've watched our call volume increase drastically on our local department, between just medicals, grass fires, bush fires, and just even structure fires in general. It comes in waves, sometimes it's busier, sometimes it's not. But overall, there's more calls than there was 10 years ago.
Yeah, we definitely seen that too. Last year was probably one of our busiest years as well for calls on average. So I'm part of Langham Fire Department down out here in Saskatchewan. Last year, he's seen about 160 fire calls last year, plus all our medicals and everything else. So it kept us fairly busy. But I've noticed the same thing over the last 10 years that I've been in this program as well, as just the vast amount of calls and medical calls that we're starting to see here. And it's putting a pretty big stressor on these little departments that we deal with. So I visit quite a few departments. A lot of departments know me because I come in and service their tools, rescue tools, trucks, equipment. But just call volume and the amount of stress and training needed now, not so much stress, but the training needed for these departments is so much greater than what it used to be. And there's reasons for that, and I can understand, but unfortunately, it's a struggle for the little departments.
Well, and that's the thing. It's adopting to the new mentality of things. Like you said, you go back in time, and it was basically the old boys. It was a group of farmers, a bunch of local people that would there was no training involved. They just basically hopped in a truck and they went to go fight fires. There was no accountability really for PPE, stuff like that. Like I said, obviously they had their gear. But I remember responding to vehicle fires with some of the old guys when I first started training, and they'd be sitting there smoking a cigarette while holding the hose line, blasting this thing as the smoke's blowing towards them, and all the negative health effects from the smoke that we know that affects people today. Like, it's just mind-boggling, and it shows that we needed that change. We needed that shift. Full-time departments have been doing it for quite some time. They had to be trained to a certain standard because it's their job. But I think we often got in that whole mentality that, well, we're volunteers, we're small town. Like, it doesn't matter. That big city stuff doesn't play into us.
Yeah, I'm very similar boat to that. So when I originally joined with my hometown department, their newest truck was out of the mid-'80s. The gear was out of the '80s. The training wasn't there. And like I said, it was an old boys club. They come Meetings were kind of get together, have a few drinks, figure a few things out. But there wasn't that training, there wasn't that equipment initiative, nothing like that. And that's what's really changed over the last decade or so, is just how much of that has come forward now. Because like yourself and myself and basically any really dedicated volunteer knows, is fire really doesn't care if you're a volunteer full time. It's still the same fire. So you got to be able to have the training and the knowledge to deal with those scenarios. And I'm pretty lucky now with the department I'm on, with my current fire chief and the training program that we deal with. We're pretty active on a lot of hands-on and a lot more specialized training due to our department's more of a rescue-based department, because we deal with Highway 16, a lot of the heavy kind of traffic. And we are the only heavy rescue department between Saskatoon and North Battleford. So we have a pretty big area for heavy.
Yeah, it keeps you pretty busy. And that's the thing. I think each department kind of gets specialized depending on what's in their area. Like, I know in Lac-La-Biche we had a lot of, NPCs was a big thing, especially I want to say 2015, before, the highways were twinned up to 63. So there was a lot of, I wasn't on the department in 2012, but I was always told that was the summer of death, because there were so many fatals between 881 and 63 that, it was just, it never ended. And, now thanks to, we had a downturn in the oil field, in the oil patch. Oil prices went down. So, that slowed things down considerably. The Fort Mac wildfire definitely, took the wind out of sails up there. But, we had the highways twins. So just the traffic, the volume going north dropped considerably less. But, where we've dropped off there, we've picked up in other areas.
Exactly. And talking about Highway 63, so the current company I work for, which is Transcare Rescue, we actually have the private rescue company based on Highway 63 at Grasslands. So I've actually been on calls up there. I've put on my shift up on 63 Rescue. So I know exactly what you guys are talking about, because 2012 is the year that Highway 63 started, due to the mass amount of casualties on that highway and the lack of response and responders up there.
Well, and it was the taxing on the responders that did, because it was a combination. Plamondon would respond from our county, but also Wandering River, Grassland, and then sometimes, Collington, depending on Boyle, depending on how severe the incident, how many people they needed. Yeah. It really showed that. And there was times where we responded out of Lac-La-Biche. Now, at that time, like I said, you had, especially the Wandering River department, because they were right there, like they were kind of that initial response. A lot of their members got burnt out, because there's only so much tragedy, there's only so many bodies you can basically pick up off the highway before you're like, hey, I need a break from this.
Yeah, and unfortunately Wandering River is still suffering from that. They still have a fairly small department. I was just there recently servicing their tools. They have air after rescue systems as well. A lot of departments up there do. But same thing with Grasslands, Wandering River. They've all pretty much burnt their departments out to the point where they don't have the response capabilities needed. So that's currently why we have that contract up there. But unfortunately, I don't see anything changing anytime soon for manpower wise.
Well, it takes a long time, especially with some of these smaller communities. It depends on how many people you have to draw off of. That's obviously a challenge. If you have a sizable community, obviously you're going to have a waiting list to try and get on with the local department. But the smaller the community is, you've got people that are aging in some of these communities. You got younger people that are like, well, there's nothing for me here, so they move away. Yep. So who do you really have? You've got a very select few, and people who did have experience, well, like you said, they've hit that burnout period, and they're like, I just can't mentally do it anymore.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of departments are seeing that. Our department as well. Probably the same with you guys out there in Alberta. We're desperate for volunteers, can't find anybody, and just no one wants to put in the time. And so far this year, we're over 60 calls.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of departments now, I see a lot of departments that were strictly volunteer have gone to that paid on call model, which, it speaks to, volunteerism is dropping off overall across the board. But I think, life in general is getting more expensive. People, need to get compensated for their time in certain areas. There's still areas where we volunteer, but I think the big thing is like we, as we mentioned at the onset, the training requirements have drastically increased to the point where it's such a huge time commitment for you to be trained to that level to where you're going to be safe and qualified and all that. that, you know, to take all that time off work for training and then also to being able to respond to calls, it just, person's like, I just don't have the time to do it. So at least if there is a little bit of an incentive, you know, especially because some of these departments are, you know, rolled into counties and municipalities now, you know, it's like, hey, they're getting compensated for their time. People can justify, okay, well, I can take some time off work to do this because, you know, I'm kind of net zero.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand that, especially with the cost of everything now that people have to give up. And we've seen this too. There's a large spike of employers not paying or not allowing their department members who are employed there to to be allowed to be dispatched to calls. So these people are leaving their job, not getting paid for 5-6 hours at a time, depending call length, stuff like that. So I'm pretty happy to see a lot of departments are going to that paid on call. We are a paid on call department as well. But unfortunately, it's probably going to be the norm here soon because unfortunately, people just can't give their time like they used to be able to.
Well, that's exactly it. You need to be able to attract people in some capacity, especially if you want people to perform at a higher level. You have to make it like a job. And I mean, in most cases, it's more like a casual position to where, you know, everybody has other jobs. And that's the thing. Like, we're never going to get away from that because in a lot of these areas, there's no justification in call volume to have a full-time department because the added cost of the taxpayer for, you know, there's going to be, there could be a couple of weeks where there's nothing. But then all of a sudden you've got a onslaught of calls. So it's like, how do you manage that? And I think, like I said, if you've got people in your community who are doing other jobs, and I find with our smaller departments or paid on call ones, you know, where you could get the job done with, let's say, you know, 15 people, you could hire 15 full timers. You need a roster of like 60, 65 to fill that gap because of, you know, different schedules. Like, you know, I look at myself, I work shift work. So, I mean, there's a complete week where I'm at home and I can respond to calls, but then there's also a week where I'm gone and I'm not even near the county. So
I'm a lot of the same way as you. I travel a lot for my job because I cover Western Canada for the AMCA system as well as a few other fire truck manufacturers. So there's a lot of times where I'm on the road for a week to 2 weeks at a time. Then I'm home for a couple of weeks. Training stuff comes up, so I'm gone. And yeah, I can also see in a few departments in our area have started to do this as well, as they have a half-time or three-quarter time fire chief and captain now running the departments. And they're used also in the town for fire safety and stuff like that. So they have a multi-role. And I can see that starting to become a little bit more common just as retention issues. So unfortunately, I've been on calls where we have called for mutual aid, which our closest mutual aid is Delmany. And as soon as we've called for mutual aid, we will get back from dispatch is Delmany's not available, no members available. Good luck. And yeah.
Well, and it's scary. Like when you get to that point where you're like, we need personnel. And I mean, oftentimes, I mean, you call for more, and when you get on scene, you're like, okay, you can downgrade it. We can stand resources down. But I mean, when you get that initial detail, you get that initial page out, and it's like, okay, we've got a, you know, multi-vehicle MVC. We've got 3 vehicles involved. You're like, hey, we need personnel. Right. And I mean, we're not going to do it with a truck of 4. Now, when you get on scene, okay, well, it was more a global vendor. People, you know, there's 3 vehicles involved. There's no extrication. I mean, there's minor injuries, maybe some whiplash. You're like, okay, we don't need to launch the fleet. But initially, when you get that initial response, especially because people are panicked and they see something that looks, you know, very scary or very intense, they're like, hey, this is out of, we need everything. And then, you know, like I said, you get on scene, you're like, okay, this isn't as bad as what the initial report is. But then there's, you know, so you often you plan to have more, and then it's like, okay, we can stand some people down. But also it becomes a scary thing when you're like, hey, this is it. This is all we have. So if we get there and it's a shit show, we've got to deal with it the best we can with what we have.
Exactly. And the way we always look at it too when we are dispatching for mutual aid is Murphy's Law. Because if we don't need it and we get there and we finally do need it, it's not going to come. So it's always better to ask for it and then stand it down than it is to go to ask for it and not to be there.
I liken that to like when I first started in the oil field myself. Like when I got in, you know, I did rig work to the point where, you know, I would go to a job and they're like, oh, it's going to be a quick one. Don't worry about packing a bag. Every time you didn't pack a bag, you would be there for a week. If you packed the bag out, and then I just got to the point where I had a bag in my truck I'm sure your service truck is kind of the same thing. You know, you've got a bag with a couple changes of clothes, your shaving kit's all ready to go. You have it with you because if I have it, I won't need it. But if I don't have it, I'm gonna need it.
Oh yeah, and that's how I've learned as well, because I've done a lot of service work on the road. So I learned how to talk here, and yeah, simple job. So like recently, got called down to Davidson Fire down on Highway 11. They had an issue with their Fort Garry fire truck and water level sensor. No problem. That is like a half-hour job, as long as they didn't muck with the magnetic programmer on it, and I have to sit there for 15 minutes trying to reprogram it. 15-minute job, half hour, done. Well, I get there, and it just so happens that they're doing the little fire hall tour for the pre-K and the little 4 or 5 year olds. Yeah. There's like 20 of them little guys, and they're spraying water. They're having an absolute blast. I show up, and I'm Mr. Awesome because just got back from FDIC, so I had a whole bag full of stickers and stuff, and I had a whole bunch of Sask Rescue tattoos, like the little stick-on ones.
Yeah.
So I was passing those out to all these 4-year-olds, having a blast. I'm just, and she's like, can you take a look at the truck too? We got a slight leak. Don't know where it's coming from. No worries. I walk on the other side of the truck while they're showing off, open the pump panel. I just get deluged by high-pressure water, and it's like, shit.
There's a bigger problem.
Yeah, bigger problem turned into 3 days. You have to lift the whole discharge off the pump, and you can't actually pull it out of that pump without pulling the pump panel apart.
Oh, man.
So I had to ratchet strap 300 pounds of valves and stainless steel to replace a gasket, and it's just like, gotta love being a fire mechanic.
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, the stuff, it works hard. I mean, it's taken care of, because I mean, like, there's so many departments take pride in their equipment. Exactly. It's very well taken care of. However, it gets used and abused because it's going from not doing anything to let's freaking go.
Yeah, it's zero to mock chicken. And so that's like one thing I really like about our AMCA system is it's simple, reliable, and rugged. We have played lawn darts with our rescue system 30 feet onto the pavement. Tool didn't even break. But I'm like, I'll go up to these departments when we're demoing or I'm delivering new tools like I did today, and I'm like, these tools are meant for firefighters. They are meant to take the abuse. They are rugged. As a firefighter, we are some of the toughest people on equipment.
Yep.
And we use equipment the way it wasn't technically designed for sometimes.
Well, we push things to its limit. And you're exactly right. Like I said, a couple of things. There was that. Oh, what the hell was it? When I was doing, I think when I was doing my WUI course, that's what it was. They're like, because when you're talking about fire weather index stuff, they're like, everything's color coded. Everything's color coded because we got to make it simple. Like you think of a pump panel, everything is brightly colored. So it's like, you know, it's not like, well, I need discharge 1. It's like, grab the red one, grab the blue one,
yellow, blue, green,
like colors. Like everything's vividly colored for firefighters because, I mean, we're going to put our gear on and we're going to go. We might not be the the smartest crayons in the box. We have intelligent people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to
that. Very but we also have some pretty tall crayons in that group.
I mean, like I said, it's like, because we're there to get shit done.
Exactly.
So one thing actually was on my to talk about list, but since you already brought it up, we're gonna dive into that. FDIC. How was it?
Oh, FDIC was a week of sore feet, man. It was a great time. You got to come next year with me. There's some fun to be had. So while I was down there at FDIC, got to see a lot of cool people. Got to see Fenton Fire and all those awesome guys. Got some pictures, got some free coffee, handed out a shit ton of stickers. There is a lot of stickers got put on a lot of trucks.
Was that your first time going to FDIC, or have you been before?
No, it was my first time, so it was pretty awesome. And like, as anyone in the fire industry who's been to the chief shows and all that up here in Canada, FDIC is like that on steroids. There was so much stuff, and there were things that you wouldn't even think about for being at a fire training conference show. Like there's stuff for like outfitting beds and fire halls to like kitchen sets to some of the latest drones and stuff like that. It's crazy for the amount of stuff we've seen. So I spent a fair bit of time in the AMCUS booth because that's kind of my thing, is the rescue tool. Got to see some of our fire truck manufacturers, some of the newer struts, systems, airbags, that kind of stuff. Got up to a few shenanigan things, but can't say more than that. Had some awesome food. Got to see my fire dad. So I got adopted by, his name's Alex. He goes by Alex Cuts Cars on TikTok and all that. He's my fire dad.
Yeah, yeah.
That dude is like next level for rescue, for auto extrication. He spent about a decade on the deadliest chunk of highway in the world doing auto ex. And then he's been in for training for departments, everything from U.S. military, NASA, Secret Service. He's the ones who train them on how to open up the presidential limo to armored vehicles. Dude is like, he's next level, and him and I just jive perfectly. So I'm actually supposed to be going down to Texas. I was supposed to go this spring, but fortunately work's been a little too crazy, but got to go down there. We're going to have some fun down in Texas doing some cool stuff in Disaster City. So looking forward to that.
That'd be pretty sweet.
It was awesome. Got a lot of cool stuff. Got a lot of cool swag. So the whole thing with your rescue pickle, I went and printed 80 little baby rescue tools that had hand painted. I was trading those down there. I went down with 80 of them. I came back with 0.
Nice. Well, and I mean, like I said, everybody likes a little bit of free swag. I'm like, the only thing I can kind of relate to, and I mean, I definitely do want to attend FDIC. I learned about it. I think it's the first time I've really heard about it. But more so because somebody who I admire, and you met him, was Jason Patton with Fire Department Chronicles, Fire Department Coffee.
Yeah.
I think back to, like, a lot of people ask, well, what kind of got you, like, you got me into content creation and stuff like that. And I was watching Jason Patton when he first came out, like watching videos on YouTube and Facebook, like even before TikTok was a thing. Instagram was in its infancy. Like he was making content, and I mean, it vibed with the whole, like, because that's when I got back onto the fire department in 2016. I think his stuff started coming out shortly thereafter, maybe 2017, 2018. And it was neat to see what he could do and generate a laugh and stuff like that. And I'm always like, well, if I ever decide to do anything, I want to do something similar to him. And I never thought I'd go down that road. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, got on TikTok about 3 years ago and started doing it.
So you're kind of the reason too that I got onto TikTok. I've been TikTok 2.5 years now for the fire side of it. So a good friend of mine, her name's Fiona. She's on TikTok here as well. She's talked to you. Yep. Little 5 foot nothing firefighter, probably the hardest working lady there out of Britannia. Like, she kicks ass. Absolutely hilarious. But she's like, you got to check out this Fire Steve. And I'm like, I have no idea who the fuck Fire Steve is. I had no idea who most of these people are on here. And yeah, started following you. And then I got some videos that kind of took off here. And next thing you know, I'm on lives with you chit-chatting about fire stuff. And
well, it's funny because I think
we're on the podcast.
Yeah, and I think when I first came across your stuff, like, because things blew up pretty rapidly for you. Because I know when I first started following you, because I think you were sitting at about 30-ish thousand, and then kind of when we became mutuals, somewhere's in there. Because I think you followed me, and then but I'd seen your stuff, but of course there was like a lot of your rescue tools at work and whatnot. Like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, and then I got a couple big videos that really took off, and I'm sitting kind of in the mid 80s. Currently got one trending, which is pretty cool, but we'll see how that goes. I've been trying to get more lives done, but
it's time.
This job takes away from it. And unfortunately, I haven't been to any of the really big departments where I've got like 5 or 6 sets of tools so I can set up the live and just chill as we're working on tools. So a lot of the stuff recently has just been really big jobs, and it's really hard to set up your phone for a TikTok when you got like 8 other fire members there asking you questions and stuff like that. But so I'm working on that now. So
isn't it awkward? Like, I know for myself, because I mean, I'll go out and people see my content and they're like, okay, I think the optics of it is that I'm just, I can do all this crazy stuff. And it's like, honestly, I make sure there's nobody around. Like, you could even ask my wife and kids. They're like, I'm like, I'm going to go over here. They're like, just do it. Like, whatever. It's no big deal. And I'm like,
Yeah, you got that social anxiety when you're trying to do it. It's the same thing when I'm trying to like set up for videos and stuff like that. And it's like trying to do like my 75,000 video and stuff. And it's like making sure like there's no one around. There's no planes flying over. And like I'm sitting there recording like the one video I recorded there, calling out another TikToker, and he's got a few podcasts, Jason DeFosse there. He's making fun of one of his videos, trying to see if we can get a competition going, but he hasn't got back to me yet. But I'm sitting there trying to record that video, and next thing there's an airplane flies over and like lands with the music, no problem. All of a sudden an ambulance goes by, then the boss walks over, sees me sitting on the car holding the rescue tool, and I'm like, I'm trying to do a video here. Could you guys like just not for like 2 seconds?
I know, like, because that's the thing. Like, I'll put up the most unhinged stuff, and it's like, you know, once it's out there, it's like whatever. I don't care. Like I said, people are seeing it and they can shake their head all they want, but it's like when I'm actively doing it, it's tough. I think the most impromptu thing that happened to me, what happened actually rather recently, I was making a video. I think it was when I was talking about like more like wildfire stuff. Oh, it was the one where they were lighting up the poplar fuzz. Like somebody took the poplar fuzz and they started on fire and it was going across the lawn, and I did the whole. Well, Fire Steve says don't freaking do that. I was in between scenes. I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to say next? I'm by myself, like I'm behind my work office. And then I hear something rustling behind me. I turn around, I see this black bear darting into the bush. I'm like, holy shit. Like I could have been mauled by a bear. And like, here's me just recording the video and you just see this bear come from behind.
We're made for a great video. I've been in very similar circumstances, and like I'll be recording like a tool maintenance tip and stuff like that, and I have my phone set up there. All of a sudden the fire chief walks in, and I'm like talking to the chief. He's looking at me, I'm looking at him. I'm like, awesome. And it's like, he's like looking at me. I'm looking at him. I'm like, who are you talking to? I'm like, no one.
I'm strange.
But man, I'm into so many fire halls and doing so many things, and I've seen my fair share of weirdness in fire halls, man. But trying to do videos and like social media stuff when you're in all these different fire halls and you got to ask for permission if you can take pictures of their trucks, have this there, have that there. Yeah, it can be quite taxing, but done right, it can make some pretty good videos. And I've had some fun with it. There's still a lot of videos I haven't posted yet, and that's just like me trying to do like oddball funny things, and it's just like, should I post it, should I not? Haven't got around to editing.
It's sometimes I just say full send. I mean, like I said, my page is a cornucopia of almost a little bit of everything. Like I went through stages. Like when I first started, obviously I've been Fire Steve the whole time, so I mean there was always that intention to do fire stuff. But when I first started, I work in oil fields, so I'm like, I'll make oil field stuff, and I mean then it, you know, gain some traction because people are like, oh, hey, it's a guy that works in the oil field. And then I was like, well, you're a firefighter too, right? Yeah, I am. I didn't really get into fire. And then I would drop the odd like firefighting thing. But it really didn't take off until the wildfire stuff, like last spring, like more so from the emergency preparedness side and stuff like that. That's where things really took off on the fire side for me. And then, you know, obviously that kind of blew up on its own, you know, people saying, you know, so many people being like, I come to you for information. I'm like, I'm just pulling the information from publicly available sources, but I'm just compacting it so it's all in one neat little spot. And then also two, being able to talk about what's happening, you know, why things are happening the way they're doing. Because that's the thing, people, you watch the news and it's like, oh, hey, there's a wildfire here and this is what they're doing, or they've got crews working over here, or they're planning on evacuating. And then people are like, well, how come they didn't do this? And how come they didn't bring in this equipment? It's like, because, you know, the certain tactics that.
Yeah, so like from what I've seen from your videos is you're bringing the fire terms into a layman's term for the average white lady to understand, because that's basically who's looking to you for all that information.
Well, and that's what I did with the oil field stuff as well. Like when I originally started on that, because I started off with the humor, and actually the big part of why I got on TikTok in the first place, it was a mental health thing for me. Like for me, it was a big thing of, you know, I was going through stuff and I didn't know how to deal with it. And then TikTok became my creative outlet, and I was just making funny stuff because, you know, my thing is like, hey, if I can give a laugh, if I can get a laugh, you know, it just, you know, kind of brings up your spirits a little bit. So then I branched out. I did some educational stuff because I realized, hey, there's a lot of people in Alberta, which our primary industry is oil and gas. And there's a lot of people that don't understand the first thing about it. So I'm like, hey, if I can, once again, bring it from a technical term down to a layman's term and, you know, try to debunk some of the misinformation around it. Because there's some people that like to take it and be like, hey, it's all bad. And it's like, okay, no, there's things that are being done that are well, you know, accidents happen, as we know in our fire life. You know, if everything ran perfectly, we wouldn't have a job.
Exactly. It's our whole job is to deal with the unfortunate circumstances of life in the fire side. So unfortunately, people have to have a bad day for us to do our job.
Well, and that's the big thing there is, I mean, like, you know, things happen, you know, nothing runs perfectly. And I mean, the thing is you could do everything in your power. I mean, you snag something on the highway and you blow a tire and now it careens you into the ditch and now you're on your side, waiting for somebody to come cut you out of that vehicle. We have medical emergencies. You know, we do everything in our power to try to be proactive, but I mean, there's some people too that you just get busy living life. Cause I mean, even on the fire prevention side of things, there's a lot of things that people don't think about because it hasn't happened to them. You know, exactly. You know, like I think of even with all the wildfire stuff we were dealing with, it had to do with a lot of people didn't realize, you know, like the preparation aspect. It was like, you know, getting prepared ahead of time. And even now I still advocate for that. I'm like, we've had freaking so much rain here in the last month, you know, and it calmed everything down, but it's like, still have a plan in place, still be prepared, because sure, it's not happening now. Maybe it'll happen later on this year. Maybe it'll happen next year. Maybe it'll happen 4 years from now. If you still have a plan and you practice it, you know, you don't have to do it all the time, but you practice it at select intervals, you're going to be ready for when that emergency happens.
Yeah, and that's that whole philosophy about training hard to fight easy. And a lot of that too, I take a lot of that kind of stuff, like talking on our to-go bags and stuff like that. So in my service truck, it's also like a demo truck and stuff like that. I carry 2 full sets of rescue tools. I always have a full set of electric tools and I have a full set of hydraulics. Unfortunately, or fortunately for actually those people who've been in that circumstances, I have been first on scene for a lot of car accidents. I travel a lot of distance. It's kind of funny when the fire department gets there and the car's already extricated and the people are ready to be pulled out. There's just me standing there and a random guy in a field with a rescue tool. But for those circumstances, I train people on this equipment now. So for me to be able to show up on that side of the highway, rescue or to extricate that person or even get that car stabilized and ready to go before that fire department shows up is basically on par with having that equipment ready. If you live anywhere in the boreal forest, plains, anywhere where there can be a rapid grass fire come through or a rapid forest fire, having that equipment ready to go to bug out and have your plan and equipment ahead of time so you don't have that panic as you're trying to figure out what you need, you're ready to go. And that kind of all ties into that preparedness and to make sure you have the proper information.
Well, and I always tie it back to one of the most simplest basic things that we do when we start training on, like when we first got on the department. What's that basic thing that, you know, when we first start, we train doing multiple times until we get it right? Donning and doffing, putting our gear on, taking it off again and again and again. I remember when I did my hazmat ops course in Slave Lake, the one instructor, like, you know, he worked out at Vermilion there. He had done a bunch of work with the fire school there, and he's like, we did the classroom portion, and then he's like, hey, everybody go downstairs, get your gear on, be ready to go. And of course, you know, it's a typical course. Everybody saunters down, everybody's bullshitting, and he had a phone call or something like that. He comes down, he's like, I told you guys to be ready. So he's like, guess what? We're going to be doing drills. So he's like, instead of getting into the hazmat aspect of it, he's like, we're going to be practicing. You guys are going to be putting your gear on. He's like, and if you don't have it on less than a minute, we're going to do it again. And again and again, because we had some fairly new people in that course as well. So it became a thing of, he's like, yeah, if you get in under a minute, you can sit off to the side. If not, you're going to do it again and again and again. I think there was some push-up component too. I think like he went drill instructor on us on that one. But
unfortunately, as an instructor too, I have had to do something very similar. So some of the programs we teach, which is like a level 2 heavy rescue, some of the more advanced farm rescue, heavy equipment rescue, stuff like that. So those are some more advanced skills. So we're dealing with larger loads, suspended loads, lifting, stabilizing, and we get these people who have come in who have had prior level 1 experience or are supposed to have had, where we have to basically put that scene on hold and go through the basics of tool operations for level 1 while we're trying to do this level 2 course. Because unfortunately, these people have either had it years and years ago and have not updated it, or they were put through an unfortunately insufficient course for them to be at this level.
Right.
So I can understand that. And like, I do like teaching the basics, though. I love drilling people through those basics, because basics is what makes everything, especially when it doesn't matter if you're putting wet stuff on red stuff, you're cutting cars apart, you're dropping trees, you're running the communications. You have to have those basics to a T. And once you have those basics, then you can start expanding further and further on. Because basically any advanced skill is just basic skills stacked on top of each other. So if you can't do the basics, you're probably not going to be able to do the advanced.
Well, and that's the big thing. And it's also the conditions that we have to do it in as well. I mean, I think of, the reason why we practice putting on our gear so much is because, we're not going to be responding to calls all the time at 5 in the afternoon, 6 in the evening, that sort of thing. You need to be able to put that gear on as efficiently at 2 in the morning after you just rolled out of bed and drove to the hall and you're scrambling, you're still half asleep. Like, okay, I got to put my stuff on. You have to put it on as efficiently and as effectively as if you were fully rested, wide awake, middle of the day. And the big thing there with that is, like I said, it's like getting that muscle memory. And I mean, that's where I liken, that to having your emergency preparedness stuff is like, if you can make it muscle memory, you're just going to be able to react and do it, not think about doing the thing. You're just going to do the thing.
That's the big thing too, is you got to be able just to do it, especially in this, the unforgiving circumstances that we put ourselves in during these high stress situations for vehicle X, fire, stuff like that. We're going into situations that are not ideal for life. Hence why we're going there. So now we have to worry about not only ourselves, but the people we are going in there to save. One big thing too with like putting ourselves forward and stuff like that, and this has been from my mentor, which is also my boss and fire chief, is you always got to tell yourself too, it's not your emergency, it's their emergency. And you need to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of those people.
Well, it's like you think of the ICS tenants, you think of like, the list that they go through. And I think the thing that the public isn't as aware of, and I think some people kind of get, I don't know if they get their nose out of joint or just don't understand, is that, life safety is number one, but I mean, technically it's number two, because responder safety is number one. If we can't get in there and do the job safely, because I think everybody has this romanticized image that there's this house and it's completely engulfed in flames. Like they're kicking down the door and you're running in there. It's like, no, I mean, if the house is fully involved and like it's clearly completely done and like the whole place is torched, nobody survived in there. And that's the unfortunate fact. I mean, if, we typically take on the attitude, well, we risk a lot, save a lot, risk a little, save a little. I mean, if it's one of those things that if everybody made it out, yeah, we're not going to send somebody in there when it could be really detrimental. Now, hey, my dad didn't make it out. My sister didn't make it out. My cousin didn't make it out. Last I seen that they were in this room. We're probably going to take on a little bit more risk. We're definitely going to take on more risk, because it's the thing of like, hey, there's somebody here. We're going to go in there. Yeah. But there's just some instances where it's like, there's nothing we can do. And I mean, we can't, if we go in there, it's like the same. And I mean, I'll relate it back to the oil field as well. It's like, H2S, people have hydrogen sulfide. If you don't protect yourself to go in to rescue the casualty, you're going to be down. And now somebody has to rescue you. Exactly.
And that's a big thing people don't take into account, is that whole scenario is that environment suitable for life? Is that environment in life, and how long has that environment been there? And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. As in for like H2S and stuff like that, I've got quite a few horror stories. As now with the company I work for too, we have a whole standby rescue team that we do industrial site rescue, especially power plant stuff. So also I've been in a lot of those environments, as well as I just lost my dad in 2011 to improper setup well in southeastern Saskatchewan due to severe H2S poisoning. So it's something I take pretty seriously, especially in those situations. If you're not trained or not prepared to deal with that situation, you should not be putting yourself or putting others into that situation who are not capable of dealing with that.
Absolutely. No, and that's the thing. That's where the training gets back into it, and being, trained up properly and competent. And it takes time. Like I said, the thing is, you get the book training, but then there's also the experience component. The thing is, you don't want just anybody running into a house. I mean, like I said, even when we got people that have done, our department does like a recruit program. So, I mean, it used to be like when I first started, and we'll dive into this topic. So when I first joined the department, I joined in 2006, late, like basically I was just 18 years old. I joined, I was on for 2 years, and I left for a while. I came back in 2016. But during that time, and even when I rejoined in 2016, it was more of just a referral thing. Like when I joined in 2006, it was, hey, you know, I knew somebody who was on the department. They're like, hey, you want to join? Sure. Well, we'll bring your name up. And if at that point, it's like, if nobody has a problem with you, then we'll bring you in. You'll meet the crew. And if everybody's cool, then you start. And then we did 3 months where you had to come to trainings. You didn't respond to any calls. You just came to the hall for the evening training sessions once a week. After that, here's your pager. You start responding. Fast forward, now we've got a full recruit program that people apply for. They get selected, you run through the training, and basically by the time you're done the recruit training, you have all the basic skill sets to be an asset on the fire ground. There's still an additional component, like we're not sending people like that immediately into interior, especially for initial interior attack.
Yeah.
You know, but at that point, they can still don and doff their SCBA. They still know how to do ventilation. They still know how to help pull a hose line. They can come and do salvage and overhaul, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what got you into the fire service?
Oh, well, this is a fun story. Well, a deep story. So family's been involved as medical responders, fire department, stuff like that for many years, grandfathers, all that kind of fun stuff. So I originally started in like 2014. I started with a private fire rescue company, did my wildland training, worked up in northern Alberta for a little bit, did a few contract fires here and there, and that's kind of what really got into it. And because before that, I was never really interested. You know, the whole family, everything was into kind of that whole ordeal until basically what happened to my father, and I'm like, well, shit. So kind of got into that, then got on with the small town fire department, which is my local town, Mapella. So gone with those when we started there. There was no training. There was nothing. It was the old man's kind of crew. And I got on with them in 2016. So basically the same time you did.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where's the training? I come in prior as a mechanic, and I've done a lot of mill rating and had a bunch of rope stuff and some of the wildland qualification. I'm like, where's the training? And nothing there. We had to switch out for the new chief, who was a little bit more in the game for that kind of stuff. So eventually I ended up actually going to Melville. I have quite a few good friends there. The new chief, deputy chief in La Ronge is Jay Wood. That's where I met him. Lynette Nordy, she's my medic up there as well in Melville. So I'd actually go up to Melville to the college training center, and I got a lot of my training done up there with the Melville Fire Department. Same thing with Jordan Sinclair. He's one of my trainers and stuff like that. So I kind of slowly started taking into that. Did a few more seasons on and off with the company up in northern Alberta there. And then I was mechanicking all winter, fighting fires in the summer. And eventually I kind of thought, you know what, I want to try this a little bit more full time. So I actually joined with the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency, which used to be Sask Wildfire, in 2019. Kind of decided to go full time with them. And COVID, that was not fun. And I absolutely loved it. We are a Type 1 crew based out of Cypress Hills, did quite a bit there. And then I got a phone call in the end of 20 by Bill McCombs there at Sask Rescue, done training for me years prior for water rescue, stuff like that. Asked if I wanted a job, and I eventually had a family on the way. So I'm like, you know what? I think it's time. As much as I love firefighting, I miss the wildland stuff. Like I've got tattoos and trying to show on my phone. Got tattoos on my arms and stuff from all that. As much as I love that, unfortunately, the pay wasn't that great from the government. So jumped ship and haven't looked back. And now I'm on with Langham Fire. We're a pretty busy department. Like I said, we deal with a lot of heavy, a lot of fire. We had a pretty interesting last couple of years as well. We've had some pretty wild calls. Like out there wild on my bingo card of fire calls. And since then, I kind of got into the social media as well. Prior to this, I used to use social media for a couple of my smaller businesses I used to run, making chef's knives and stuff like that. So I kind of started into the whole social media side of that years and years ago. Helped my mother with her market garden stuff, and slowly kind of lost track of doing that. It's just I kind of squirrel of the moment thing, kind of followed that shiny spoon that way and this way. And finally, working with Transcare, they didn't have a whole social media side. They had Facebook, and that was about it. And I'm like, now Facebook's kind of going by the wayside for a lot of the younger generation. So I might as well try this TikTok thing out. Talk to a friend of mine. She's got a few thousand followers. So I'm like, how does this work? And I'm like, I had no idea. So just started posting some of the videos from like some of the fires I've been to and stuff like that. And then we kind of slowly transitioned from forestry over to the whole rescue side. And that's kind of where it's been sitting at now, is teaching, showing off all the rescue equipment. And something I'm looking at doing here once I actually get a few minutes is kind of a short minute to minute and a half video on rescue techniques, dealing with extrication, lifting, stabilization, just like kind of that quick, rescue tips with the Sask Rescue Guy kind of videos. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, is doing that, getting my YouTube stuff more on the go, and then working along with other creators like yourself and quite a few others here in Saskatchewan, Alberta, as well as in the States. So that's kind of my feel, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a big thing of, why I want to do this podcast. I know we kind of talked about that before we got on air, is that, a big thing for me is we see these creators, but we see a facet, right? Like we just see a little bit, like, I mean, we go to your page and it's a lot of the rescue tools and showing how the equipment works and the servicing of it. And eventually, like you said, some tips that'll go along with it. But it's nice to see what the origin story is, if you will, kind of getting some of that history on it. And that's where I think, like I said, doing a long form interview podcast, that's why this has become a passion of mine. Cause it's, for me, I spend a lot of time on the road, as do yourself. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's nice to be able to put on something and just let it, it's almost like you're part of the conversation. You're a fly on the wall, and you can just kind of let it play in the background. You don't have to watch the video. You don't have to sit and watch it. You can just play it over your stereo as you're driving from location to location or heading down the highway. And I mean, we're kind of getting into summer road trip season. So I'm like, this was kind of like a perfect time to launch it. And social media is interesting. Like I said, I think, to me, I look at it almost like a puzzle some days. It's like, well, what works, what doesn't? Because every platform is slightly different. Like what works on TikTok doesn't necessarily work on YouTube. And what works on YouTube isn't going to work on Instagram. And you've got to kind of figure out what works on each platform. And I think the biggest thing is allowing people to get to know your personality. Obviously, we kind of create a bit of a caricature. Like, I mean, I look at myself. Yeah, I put out a lot of silly, funny content. Am I silly and funny all the time? Not all the time. I know there's a time to be serious and there's a time to not be. Typically, I'm usually, I mean, you've talked with me enough. I pretty much present how I am, because I'm like, I don't want to pretend to be somebody. But of course, if you're typically at a 7, you're going to bump it up to a 9.5, if not a 10, just to be like, okay, I'm going to sell this thing a little bit.
Let's get some of that energy in there. And that's the whole thing too that I've learned with doing this as well, is there's a whole different side of me when I'm training you versus like the videos I post versus what I'm actually doing in person. And like you said, there's times to be very serious about this when we are talking about some pretty heavy topics to times where we're having absolute, like, rolling on the floor, dying of laughter talks about some of the most bizarre calls we've done. And there's a few fire guys on here that I've talked to on TikTok and stuff like that, where we'll get on these lives and we'll just start going through some of the more mundane and insane calls we've experienced over the years, because these gentlemen in the service 40, 50 years. So they've got some pretty wild stuff. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the person, I have seen my fair share of absolutely like crazy calls, from showing up the shootings on the center of the highway to you name it, man. I've seen some bizarre and absolutely hilarious things on the road, as well as calls. And
well, I think that's the thing. We're seeing, like you said, we're kind of seeing raw humanity, like, especially like, and we're seeing people when they're at their absolute worst, which is a tough time, because like, people are, often too, like you think of, like as a first responders, we're the first ones there, and then we're dealing with the initial carnage. And obviously we package the patients up, get them to the hospital, and then we're passing that football along. And I've had conversations with nurses, and it's like, it's funny because I always look at it's like, I can't deal, we always look at it be like, I don't know how the other person does what they do. And I know I've talked to some that they're like, yeah, we don't have to deal with the initial carnage of that scenario. They have to take them and stabilize them and get them to a point of like, hey, they're from critical to better. That's their role. And it's like, that's out of my wheelhouse. Same as actually, and I'll throw this one out there too, dispatching. I fucking admire dispatchers because they do something that I don't think I'd be able to do because I'm an action person. I see a problem. I need to get in there and do it. Whereas you're on the phone.
They're sitting behind the phone listening to this absolute terrible thing that's happening, and there's nothing they can do. I'm very well the same kind of person as you. I can't just sit there and watch something or hear something happening. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go do something.
Yeah.
I can't just stand by and let that happen.
No, and I'm the exact same way, and that's why, like I said, I have mad respect. I mean, we all have a role to play, and in these situations, and it's we all do our thing.
It is, and unfortunately, like you said, though, as first responders, we are first on scene. We see majority of our calls are people having their worst day of their lives, and we have to come in there and we have to do something. And it is the hardest part for me is not the bodies, picking up the pieces, the stuff like that. It's the pleads for help when you can't do anything. And that's the part that really impacts me. And now that we are into June, which is, the Men's Mental Health Month, it's unfortunately a topic that we really need to talk on with a lot of, unfortunately, male and female responders. Because unfortunately, with what we do and what we see, it affects us all different ways, but it still affects us.
Well, no, and that's a big thing. Like I said, obviously, like I said, and not to downplay. Like I said, our ladies, mental health is super important. All first responders, and actually, I'm starting to work with an organization. I'm in the early stages, but I'm still gonna plug them anyway. They're called Boots on the Ground. They've got, I think they originally started in Ontario. They've got a branch in Alberta. I think every province, or they're working on getting it in every province. But yeah, they've got, and I'll have to, if I find, I'll find their contact number. It's, if not, just look up Boots on the Ground, Alberta, Boots on the Ground, Canada. And, for any first responders that need mental health support, they're there. What I'll do is in the description of the video, I'll plug their contact number. They got a toll-free number that people can call, and that's for everybody. Yeah. And I'll be coming out with a bit more information on that a little bit later on down the road. But yeah, like you said, we're in June, we're Men's Mental Health Month. And I mean, the big thing with being a guy is we're stubborn and we don't like to talk. We push that shit down. We're like, we don't need to emote. At least, like I said, I know we come back from bad calls, and yeah, typically, the females will let it out. They'll process it. They're a little bit more easy to emote in that sense. Not all the time. And that's, I mean, it's very important for everybody, but I mean, especially the guys. And I mean, me being in the blue collar world, being in the oil field, but also too seeing it on the fire side, like I said, guys just don't want to talk about this sort of thing. And it's like, you got to let this stuff out. I mean, especially when you're going through seeing some of these traumatic things, we're seeing a lot of abnormal stuff that most people don't see.
Exactly. And the worst part too is us as individuals, we go through things at home as well. So we start compounding those issues with what we're seeing, and it can really spiral. And what we see too with especially the male side of this, is they won't talk about, especially coming back from calls, till they're home alone, away from any type of understanding, and they're there to process it by itself. And especially for the stuff that we see and deal with, it is very hard for people who aren't in the fire rescue service to understand. So to be able to actually have somebody to talk to or to help with understanding what you're dealing with or what you've seen, what you're going through, especially with all the other compounding things from like financial, emotional stress, all that other stuff from home and work, is it can get really taxing on somebody. And that's why we see these large burnouts of especially male firefighters of, unfortunately, our age range.
Well, and it's also looking at it from the, it's also the stigma that goes behind, like, the whole being a volunteer or paid on call. Like,
I feel like when you're in a full-time position, you've got your benefits, and it allows for mental health supports and stuff like that. I mean, and that's, you know, what you're planning to do that day. Like I said, you know, you're at the hall. I mean, not to say, like I said, we absolutely, full-time firefighters are dealing with the same things that we deal with. It just is an added level to when it's not your full-time job. You know, you're at an office, you're checking wells, you're, you know, servicing tools, you're whatever it may be. Maybe you're teaching a classroom full of kids, and then, you know, afterwards you're running out, and then you're picking up a little one off the road. It, like, the amount of mental taxing on a person at that point in time, and especially when you're dealing with that stuff. And I mean, thank God, like, I haven't had to deal with anything involving little ones. And I mean, being a father, and I know that's usually the one that knocks a lot of people out. And we have to, if we don't take care of our mental health, then our longevity in this profession is short-lived.
It is, and that's something too. So, as well as got kids, got 2 little boys, and unfortunately, I've been on calls with kids, and those ones are probably the toughest ones for me. Luckily, though, I've also been on a lot of calls with little kids where we've actually managed to get in and provide life-saving measures to get those kids off. But the one hard part for me, doesn't matter if it's small little ones, adults, and stuff like that. Once we package those people up, we get them out. We spend hours telling them, you know, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to get this out. We load them in the ambulance. Never see him or hear of him again.
Yep.
And that's one thing that really sucks, especially on the mental health side, is we never get to hear the outcomes of these stories. As we put a lot of effort in to get these people out of there, to get this life-saving measures started, and then once they're gone, it's like, well, did they make it?
We need closure, and closure is an important thing.
It is,
and I've started to realize that, like, you know, my story, I've kind of briefly, actually, I have a plan to do. I was going to actually do a full story time last week of when I was up in Paddle Prairie on the Chuck Egg fire in 2019, up in High Level there. Because, like I said, the night that fire burned through that community, and we worked through the night to save what we could. I mean, like I said, that even my wife's like, I think you've got, you know, PTSD from that. I'm like, I probably do. Because I mean, like I said, it's vivid in my mind. Like, I remember every single detail of that night. And thinking on that. So when we went through, you know, the fire burned through that night, the fire behavior massively shifted that day. Because I mean, they weren't even anticipating it to impact the settlement whatsoever. And then all of a sudden the wind started gusting out of the north, and that fire moved. I think it moved like 50K in a day. Like, it moved, that thing, it was moving fast. I mean, we did sprinkler protection on some structures, and then other ones through the night. Like, when in the actual settlement itself, we were just basically doing bump and run. So it was like the forest was on fire around everything. And as things were burning, as the fire was creeping into the yards, or the embers were coming down, we were extinguishing that, keeping the structures safe, and letting everything else burn.
Yep.
Wrapped up that night, worked through the night, and we finally were able to get out of there. Once the fire burned past us, they were able to get relief down to us. And then, you know, obviously went back to High Level, got sleep, because I think we started at like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on the 28th. And then we worked into the 29th, or maybe we started on the 29th and worked into the 30th. I can't remember exactly, but it basically was the 5-year anniversary here last week. And yeah, we worked through the night, finally was able to get back. And then it was, when the hell was that? 2 years ago. Because that was in 2019. I worked up in Rainbow Lake operating until 2022, until like January, February. Then I started in this Red Earth area. And it was that fall. So yeah, it was September of 2022. Finally in Paddle, they did a banquet. They basically did a banquet for the community, which they planned to do in like 2020, but then COVID happened. So, you know, they wanted to do it like after they did some rebuilding in the community, because this happened in May of 2019. So they were planning to do this in 2020. You know, COVID basically, you know, hit the community hard as well. So then they were able, finally, once the restrictions had dropped, they're like, hey, we're going to do this thing. And it was a thing for the fire, for the Chuck Egg, but also too for COVID, because there was things that impacted the community as well. So they brought everybody together, and they extended the invite to, to all the departments, everybody who was involved in that event. we were having our basically our fire banquet in Lac La Biche at the time, but I was at shift. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to go. And that's funny because I pulled up the map and I'm like, because as soon as you pull up an Apple map, it's like, oh, it's, 200K away. Not realizing that's as the crow flies. It was actually a 3-hour drive, but I talked to my foreman. I'm like, okay, this thing's happening on this day. Do you mind if I get my stuff done? Go up there. He's like, yeah, no, as long as all your work's done, whatever. He's like, I'm okay with that. So I made the drive. To Paddle Prairie. And I guess the big thing of that was I didn't realize how much that closure meant to me. I went there and celebrated with this community, had dinner with them, talked with some of the people. Like, I know there was one family that they're like, hey, can we get a picture with you? And then, afterwards, I was told that, yeah, they lost their house in that fire. And it's like, oh, like just fucking getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. Like, having that closure is so important, and not always do we get it. And we have to be able to function without it. But when we get it, it is so huge.
It is. And that's the unfortunate part, especially for the stuff we deal with, is we very rarely get that closure. We get it a little bit more sometimes with the house fires and stuff like that than we do with a lot of the accidents. So talking on stories like that, so I got a lot of closure out of, we had a pretty bad call 2.5 years ago, or actually 2 years ago now. It'll be 2 years in a month, end of the month. So we got dispatched at June 29th at 5 o'clock in the morning to a house fire. Typical dispatch, nothing like that, except for they gave us wrong coordinates. It was in Avenue I and Kyle Street. And we're like, we don't have an Avenue I in Langham. So anywho, I'm the first one at the hall, so I don't sleep. So I'm at the hall pulling the truck out. And all of a sudden we get a confirmation of a second house fire in Avenue I and Kyle Street. And I'm like, we don't have an, so I'm on with dispatch. I'm like, can I get a confirmation? And all of a sudden we get back that there's been a shooting at this exact address with the fire. And we're like, this must be a Saskatoon problem that we're getting a Saskatoon dispatch. And nope, finally got it right. Basically 2 blocks behind the hall, 2 houses on fire. Basically, can't give out too much information on exactly what happened, but it turned out to be the one house's husband kind of was on a vendetta to unfortunately remove his wife and kids from this earth. Fortunately, they were not there. He blamed the neighbor. The neighbor did not make it. The neighbor's house was on fire. His house was on fire. So time we got dispatched to that, I was second man on scene, just ahead of our fire chief. That's when we found the first unfortunate neighbor. And then, so it just escalated from there. So we were fighting 2 house fires. We knocked one down. It was only spread in through the entryway, so we managed to knock that down. Fortunately, the other house was pretty much fully involved on the back half, kitchen area, back entrance. We were working on that. We only had 4 firefighters, so it was a tough battle. We were slowly getting people in. And then all of a sudden, things started coming out. We started noticing things, and that's when it turned from a fire to a homicide to an active shooter situation. And by 9 o'clock that morning, we were pulled off the house because we were up on top. I was doing roof operations for cutting story-and-a-half house, old construction, gotten up inside the sawdust insulation in the rafters. So we were cutting. So anywho, horns go off. We get called out because they had pinged the individual's cell phone. He showed within 300 yards of us. So we actually got pulled back to the baseball diamond. We're under armed guards. It turned into a whole situation. The house basically relit. We left our trucks there, just lost both of our engines. Yeah, turned into quite the shit show. I've got some pretty hilarious stories about that. But anywho, we eventually did figure out where this individual was. He was actually in the house that was burning. He had went down to remove her cat because he's tried to remove anything of importance to her. Got trapped by his own fire. But it was a tough fire. And unfortunately, I was the one who had to remove the casualties from both the shootings and the fire, because unfortunately with my department, that's more of my role because I deal with things.
Yeah.
And so we went there, we dealt with that, and turns out, so at work with Transcare, our shop lady's actually best friends with the person's wife, the lady who lived in the house with her kids. So it's unfortunately, it's kind of hit a little bit close to home for us at Transcare. And through Shauna, which is our shop lady there, our company would not run without Shauna. Like, everyone needs a Shauna running their company. And just work with her. We came in, and upon her request, myself and 2 other firefighters came to that house, and we went through what's left of there, because we managed to save the bottom half of the house, living room, bedrooms, and stuff like that as well. So we actually went in there, donned our SCBAs, because it was still a pretty toxic environment, and we sounded the floors. I went through, and we found certain family heirlooms and precious items for her little kids and stuff like that. So it was really nice to be able to actually get in and do that. We actually found the remains of their parents, their ash urn and stuff like that. But one thing that really kind of stuck with me on that whole closure thing is after the fire and flood guys went through there, couldn't find anything. She had this one thing from when the mother was in Europe for years doing school. She was only able to afford one thing. It was this little porcelain Loch Ness monster. And I'm like, you know what? I got an idea, because, well, we kind of did trash the house with a 2.5 inch. I put enough water on the second floor. The insulation was lifting out through the joists. But I got an idea. I go and eventually I start digging through a bunch of stuff, lift up the burnt up china cabinet, and then also I find this little green tail. I find this little hump thing, and then I finally digging through, and it's broken pottery and glasses. Find the head of it, and it's this little 3-piece Loch Ness monster that sits on the shelf. So I found that, and she's just absolutely devastated there. Just house is gone, everything. Her garden's gone, everything's wrecked. Her whole life's coming apart. And there comes me out of this burnt house holding these 3 little porcelain things like this. I'm like, I think I found something for you. And there and behold was her Loch Ness monster, which was her most precious keepsake thing, as well as we found her youngest son's most important Pokemon card. And I'm like, next time make sure he cleans his room, because if we ever have to try and go find something again, make sure his room's clean, because it was a mess. And trying to find these certain things, and it's we managed to find it.
That's the battle I have with my kids. It's you guys, if we have a fire, you're not getting out of here. You got so much junk on the floor. It's clean your room.
Yeah, and that's just the hilarious thing about it, is I can get a little bit of humor out of that, because I'm like, next time make sure your kid cleans his room, because it'd be a lot easier next time. And we got a good laugh out of that, but I managed to actually get the closure out of that. She was able to see this, and she had some relief, because we were able to actually recover some photo albums. But the biggest thing was that little porcelain Loch Ness monster we were able to recover. That was her one and only keepsake from her being overseas doing school. So that was one of the more nicer outcomes, I guess, out of a situation.
It's exactly. It's out of a terrible situation. If we can find that little glimmer, I mean, obviously they've suffered great loss, but sometimes it's those little wins that can turn the tide a little bit, I guess. I think the one I'll always remember is, we had a structure fire just outside of town. I remember we it was basically, it tore through the house, but a lady was renting it. She had 2 boys. Boys had autism. So they had keepsakes that they were that were very important to them. And I remember we were able to go in, we recovered a whole bunch of these stuffed animals for these kids, and they were super excited, just the joy on them, and the little things we do that you wouldn't think is a big thing. Like I said, it grabbing a stuffed animal, grabbing a Loch Ness monster, grabbing actually I'll remember one. We had an apartment fire, and it was a man and his son, and the son had I can't remember if it was a gerbil or a hamster or a guinea pig. I think it was a guinea pig. And here's one of our firefighters giving mouth to mouth, doing little CPR on this guinea pig to try and bring it back. Unfortunately, it didn't make it. But the fact that, this boy was this boy was distraught, and just the fact that, hey, we tried to do something really, it helped them out, and to say, hey, that, people care. It's a shitty situation, but I mean, people tried. And, there's a lot of things that we do like that it's just you wouldn't think would mean a lot. But I mean, if we can, like I said, give it that little glimmer of hope, or something.
Exactly. Well, here's a pretty funny one. So we actually had an NBC call yesterday. You kind of seen a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're on their way to a party. Grandson was falling behind, T-bone. Grandmother's unfortunately pretty ill, injured. Get her all packed up, get most of that stuff cleaned up. Took a little bit of work with some equipment, but we got into the back seat of the car and folded those down, got into where the trunk area was, and managed to recover both trays of cheesy breadsticks that were supposed to be going to the party, and managed to pass those off. No glass in them, so it's like there's a bonus to that. Managed to pass it off to her nephew to get him to the party while Grandma got shuttled off by the ambulance. So it's like little victory there. Managed to save the cheesy breadsticks.
And like, it's exactly it. I remember, actually, that reminds me, you talking about food brought up another memory as well. It brought up a memory of, we had another apartment fire. This one was, definitely somebody started it intentionally. But I mean, the upper floors, basically the whole apartment complex had to be evacuated. So, and then it was Thanksgiving weekend. And, you know, a lot of the people that are living in the apartments, they're on fixed income because, I mean, this is what they can afford, a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And now they're like, you know, I think they did get accommodations, but there was just like, I remember one lady, she's like, I have a turkey. She's like, can you get my turkey for me? Because we basically just told people, we're like, we can't let you in because it was under, like, we were still doing the investigation and all that. So people weren't allowed in. So, but we had a couple, 2-3 of us there that are like, you know, the residents show up, let us know what apartment you're in, what you need. We'll go get it for you. Or if there's anything you need, like grab clothing, medications, whatever it may be. So we went up and, like I said, the one lady, she's like, I have this turkey. She's like, and would you mind grabbing it for me? And like, I think by the end of it, we brought out the whole Thanksgiving dinner. It was like a turkey, pumpkin pies, stuffing. But you can tell, like I said, she'd spent all this money to prep this Thanksgiving dinner for her and her family. And it was all stuck inside. And she's like, I still want to do this dinner and not let it go to waste. So, I mean, it was just the fact, she's, oh, then I'm sorry, you know, could you grab this? And it's like, don't worry about it. This is what we're here to do. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, if I got to make 10 trips, bringing down whatever, if you want all your pots and pans, I'm like, I'll do it. I don't care. You know, if you're going through, it's a shitty situation, but if there's any way we can make it better, and that's the part I enjoy. Like I said, obviously we have the adrenaline rush when the things are happening. I mean, that's something that, you know, you're just, you know, like, hey, it's go time. Let's get this done. There's that excitement to it. But after everything's said and done, it's, you know, being able to go in and, you know, be able to have that positive impact.
It is. And like you said there, and like that lady who's like saying, thank you so much for what you're doing. But we're just there to do that. That's why we're here. You don't really need to thank us. We're really happy to go and do that stuff for you. We've been on many medical calls and stuff like that, where, especially during COVID, where the individual was so sick they couldn't do anything. And you know what we're doing there, especially the new guys, while we're doing vitals and stuff like that, they're feeding the cat, they're shoveling off the driveway. I've got a terrible story about one of our new guys who was just going through medical training. He's never seen anything in his life. He's pretty new to this whole scenario. And you're just there to take paperwork and to lift assist. That's basically it. It's kind of our trial run. You kind of come with us because they're not fully trained, but we use them as lift assist.
Okay, yeah.
Program. That's kind of how we're doing. And we're in this house, and I'm like, go feed that lady's cat. It's like, it's howling, hasn't been fed. She's been third time seeing her in like a week. And I'm like, you go feed that cat, take care of it, figure it out while we're doing this. Get the lady up, finally convince her to get in the ambulance, stuff like that. Walking across her kitchen and codes. Drops right there. And we start working her. And there's the poor new guy holding the bag of cat food like this with like absolute frightened panic on his eyes because he's never witnessed or been through any of this. And we ended up getting the lady into the ambulance, working her, and unfortunately, was not a great outcome. I had to ride into the city anyways, doing compressions, which unfortunately I seem to do a lot of. But we're all in the ambulance, working myself with the other medical responder with us. And we left the poor new guy outside in the snow, and he didn't know to come knock on the door to see what's going on. So he's kind of freaking out. eventually he kind of calmed himself down, went and sat in our medical response unit and waited till the other person. But it's like situations like that, it's like really unfortunate for you to witness that. But you were doing a good thing because you had shoveled the driveway like we'd asked. But we do stuff like that, and people are so thankful for that kind of stuff because it's the decent thing to do.
Well, that's exactly it. Like I said, it's, decent thing to do is hitting the nail on the head. And it's a thing of, is it, and I think that's where some people, it's like, well, is that our job? And it's like, well, no, our job, it's not in the job description to be out shoveling sidewalks. However, if it comforts somebody, if it helps somebody out, it's just something, like you said, having that propensity to want to help somebody out. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, even going forward to, looking at that transition from a lot of departments being strictly volunteer to paid on call. It's a thing of like, the motivation is still there to help people. Even if you are being compensated for your time, the motivation is still, you want to have a positive impact on people. And, like I said, in a roundabout way, like going back into the content side of things, like when I started doing like the wildfire videos, and then there's some people, you get some trolly comments and people like, oh, you're just doing this for this reason. It's like, the reason why I started it was because I remember talking to a lady up in high level after high level was evacuated and everybody was able to go home because I was working up in that area. And I remember sitting at Boston Pizza and just kind of chat while I was having my lunch and chatting and talked about the evacuation. And she's like, I didn't grab any of my important documents, but she's like, I grabbed a pie plate. And so the story just sticks out in my mind because she's like, I didn't know what to do. I was panicked. I was, it was just like basically they're saying, hey, you've got, a few hours, you got to grab your stuff and you got to go. That was the fuel for me to start making content talking about, hey, this is some information. Because I mean, there's so much knowledge we can learn at home on our phones, whether it's watching TikTok, YouTube, scrolling Facebook. I mean, you could just go for straight entertainment, but you can learn some amazing things as well. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, if you're scrolling there and it's like, hey, this video pops up being like, here's some steps that you can do to be prepared, and you don't really have to think about it. It's a thing of like, okay, maybe I'm not in that situation now, but now I think it's at a point where people are like, hey, Steve puts out videos on emergency preparedness. So if something happens and people are like, I don't know what to think about because now I'm panicked because there's a smoke plume out my window, and then it's just the thing of like, they're like, I don't know what to do. They can load up the video and be like, okay, here's some steps, and here's something to kind of work off of, or here's some resources where I can go look at it.
Yeah, well, for me, with the human brain, the way it works is we also have those triggering events. It's, oh wait, I've seen this somewhere in a panic. This is what Steve said to do. I don't quite recall it, but Steve has that video, so I can go back to that to see. And I'm kind of really on the same boat too. That's why I'm really working with trying to get these tips and tricks for auto extrication, because we are dealing now with some of the more modern vehicles that have absolutely terrifying technology and materials on them, like stuff that scares me. I don't get scared too often on these Auto X, but there's new stuff that is starting to really cause concern, and it goes back to a lot of the training. So unfortunately, I don't want to bash on any provincial training programs, but there's a few training programs through different provinces here that is 20 to 25 years out of date. It works on stuff from cars from the early 2000s, which has no relevance to the cars that we're dealing with now. So yeah, that's great if you're only dealing with those older cars. Unfortunately, how many new modern cars, how many newer technology cars are you dealing with on the road now? And absolutely getting themselves into this situation where they're trying to extricate somebody out of this car, and all of a sudden their traditional dash roll is not working. They're not able to cut it there. All of a sudden their tool explodes, and they don't have an understanding of why. Yep. So that's why I'm really starting to push on that whole tips, tricks, and training videos onto understanding modern techniques, as well as the whole difference between our current generation of ion tools and the hydraulic tools. There's huge learning curves on that technology, especially with like our bigger spreaders and stuff that can go from deadlifting rail cars to the older generation that could barely peel off a door. Yep. And also getting these new cars and stuff that they're crazy. And yeah, there's airbag systems, there's new electronic systems, and that's stuff that I'm going to probably start really tucking into, is like the whole SRS modules, all that other fun stuff, and just to really bring out to the people to show that there's this stuff out here and you guys really need to start considering this. Because unfortunately, you cut into a brand new BMW or a Volvo front support that has the pedestrian collision kit into it. You make one wrong cut, you're cutting into a 10,000 PSI air cylinder in the upper. And it's like, that's right there is a pipe bomb waiting to happen, unfortunately.
Well, and I think the other thing too, and you know, kind of where I was leading into that as well, is that like as Canadians, there's no creator fund. Like we're basically just doing this. We're putting this information out there. So I mean, to me, like I said, it even goes back to the whole thing of like, so we're like with the content that I've done on the fires and like what you're doing with the Auto X, is that we're putting this education out there for people's benefit. So that way people can be safer, people can be better off. Because the thing is too, is I mean, that kind of goes back into, not exactly, but kind of into that whole volunteerism aspect. It's like, hey, we're providing a service without expectation of anything in return. I mean, if we can get this information, I mean, when I made the wildfire prep video here, like the updated one I did for this season, the Red Cross Canada is like, hey, do you mind if we repost this? And I'm like, I don't care who it is. I don't care if you like, I don't need credit. I'm like, if you can, cool. But I'm like, honestly, the whole thing for me is I just want that information out there to the people that can utilize it at that time.
And I'm very much the same way. So a lot of the videos I show with our tools, doing the new like dash below it techniques and stuff like that, I'm sending them to my American counterparts where they have this creator fund. And they're like, what do you mean we can just use this? And I'm like, use the video, man. It's information. I don't care if you use our competitors' tools, whatever. It's to deal with helping people. That's why I'm doing this. I have made absolutely $0 off my TikTok. I think I got like half a cent from someone giving me a gift once on a live, but I made nothing on it. But I'm still here doing videos. I'm here chatting with people because this is what I love to do, and I love to be able to share that information, those safety facts, as well as the whole wildfire things. That's kind of originally how I got into this, and I probably eventually should start talking a little bit more into that. But my thing right now, and the thing I'm pretty much super passionate about, is the whole rescue side. I deal with high angle rope rescue, water rescue. I'm not a good swimmer, but you know, I try. So
we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I mean, exactly. you think of the fire ground, you get, I mean, obviously we all have the capacity to do, actually, here's a good question. I'll say mine and then I'll ask you yours. So we all have our things that we're gung-ho about, and we have our things that if we don't have to do it ever again, we won't. But obviously it's one of those things, like it's part of the job. For me, my don't like to do is medical stuff. Like anything to do with medical, that is not my cup of tea. I will do it. I mean, if there's no one else around that's going to take it on, and it's me having to do CPR, me have to provide some sort of medical aid to a person to save their life, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do it. However, that is not my forte. I'm more the big thing go boom guy. Like, hey, we got like I said, for me, it sounds silly, but I mean, my ideal thing would be like a wellhead fire, a tanker car fire, things that it's like, this is going to be a shit show, but I'm getting in there because it's like, that's where I feel like I excel at. That's what I have an interest in, you know, more so the technical side of things, mechanically, not people.
Yeah. I am very close to the same to you, except for I won't say no to a good trauma. My nickname used to be the Trauma Llama. And that's kind of how a bunch of other stuff. But I will go to them, but I don't like doing I got a sore knee or a cough type medical calls. Those aren't really mine. I'm not really good with the small talk. But my thing, unfortunately, I like to say, is bad NVCs or real technical rescues. That's my cup of tea.
That's like, your jam.
3 semis piled up and twisted into a giant pretzel, and then there's somehow a bus with 18, orphans from some war zone in some foreign country wrapped up in that as well. That's my jam. And whole side of that, and like, don't get me wrong, I love throwing wet stuff on red stuff, putting out big fires. I put out some big fires in my time, but the technical side, that's where I really, really enjoy it. But yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as the medical calls or dealing with sewer fire calls. I've had a few bad calls involving sewage and fires. They're kind of like no-go for me.
That doesn't sound like a good time at all. It sounds like a shitty situation.
It was an absolute shitty situation. Like the one call that comes to mind, that we got called out to a trailer fire, and if you know anything about trailer fires, they never go well. So we're already dreading it. It's like person's trailer, white trash. And it being an older couple, house wasn't actually on fire. Or the trailer was on fire. It was like, nice. But there was smoke coming from the crawl space. And I'm like, yay. So we have a positive pressure fan on there. Doff the SCBA, put my green light on, and I crawl into the smoke with the thermal camera trying to figure out where it is. Captain's behind me, tugging along on my boot, and we're going along, and also it's not feeling right. Look down, and we're in, looks like water and mud, and it's all stuck to me, and it's like, what are we getting ourselves into? We get up to where the well line comes up and through the house, and the heater cord shorted out, started a small electrical fire. It burnt itself out basically by that point. But what we had failed to notice is the smoke was clearing with our pressure system there, shining the light around, and I'm like, oh, there's water everywhere. Why is this water gray? Why is there an O. Henry bar without a wrapper floating over there? And it's like, what the actual... And like they can hear me yelling over the radio system in the SCBA, and I shine my light up, and there's the 4-inch tube that comes off the toilet, comes out like that, and then breaks off. So it's been dumping raw sewage under the trailer for months.
Oh man. Oh.
And it's just like, I'm under I smell it, and I'm like, and I just got some of this gear, and it's like,
just throw it out. It's get all brand new gear. It's like you're not.
It's like, and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, why am I even in here? Like,
I feel like
hosed down, all my gear's laid out on the truck, and yeah, and we've had one other similar call to that, and that was the cat lady, but that's for when we do our bizarre, weird, gross calls podcast episode.
We'll have to book that in at some point where it'll be like, here's all the crazy stuff that we've been a part of. Yeah. So I think to kind of wrap things up a little bit, like I said, going back into, I'm turning the wrong thing on here. Talking, like I said, once again about the whole mental health thing. Like I said, encouraging people to talk. I think the big thing, especially nowadays, like there's so much more supports than there were when I first started, and then even decades prior to that. I mean, before it was the whole rub a little dirt in your wound, get back to work mentality. Now it's nice to see that critical incident stress management, CISM, is becoming such commonplace with every department, whether big, small, etc. Being able to have those resources available for people to talk and work through the things that they need to work through, and the things we see.
Exactly. So that's one thing. I am CISM trained. It's something we deal with as well. So with that program you're talking about, boots on the ground, we have a program out here that we've been using for a while too. It's called the All In program. And we have a whole challenge point system with all that. And that is to help with department members who might not be comfortable with saying something's wrong. But we all carry them in our gear. We all have the all-in challenge coin. So we can actually put that out on the table, and that's it right there is the indication that that person is not comfortable or something is bothering them without them having to admit it in front of everybody. So that's where our CISM team will kick into place, and that's when we will do the things that are necessary to get that person the proper help and communications they need to help deal with what they're going through. And to me, mental health, I've dealt with it quite a bit in my life. I've also been diagnosed with PTSD through, unfortunately, a lot of other traumatic events I've been witnessed through. But as somebody who's been able to get through that, deal with their issues, and kind of see the other side of the tunnel, when you are dealing with these kind of incidents, when you are dealing with this inner trauma and these demons that are causing you all these griefs and issues. You got to remember that you're not alone when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. There's a lot of us out here who have been through that. We may not be able to help you, but we will know where to send you or where to go to get you that proper help. Because that's something that myself and you as well as take very important, is that when somebody is suffering like that, there's things that need to be done. Because unfortunately, we don't ever want to see that. And we don't ever want what we went through to be experienced by others people. And that's something I really hold here and dear, because I've went through a lot of heartache in my life. I've had a lot of relationships fall apart. I've had a lot of bad things happen. And I don't want to see anybody go through that. So once you put up that link for the Boots on the Ground, I've read into that program a little bit. Great. It's a great program, especially for first responders, military, stuff like that, people who have worked in the public sector, to reach out to somebody who can understand and hopefully get the right information for those people, as well as reach out to myself. I can point you in the right direction to get the proper help. It's something I've always been a little bit passionate about, and I will never not be able to answer or get you the right kind of help.
Well, that's the thing.
Point you in the direction for the right kind of help.
Well, and I think it's the thing. It's who you're comfortable with. Because I mean, like we've got our CISM team, and they've often said, like, make sure you just talk to somebody. Like, you don't necessarily have to talk to somebody who's CISM trained. Obviously, they've got a little bit more in-depth knowledge, a little bit more so than. But like, and even what I tell some of our junior firefighters and some of our firefighters that work alongside me is, I'm like, if you feel comfortable talking to me, come talk to me. Like I said, I don't have the CISM training per se, but it's like, sometimes you just talk to the person you're comfortable with, get that as a starting point, and then you can kind of work your way up from there. It'll be a thing of, you're talking to somebody and it's like, are they going to be able to help? Sometimes the person just needs to vent or realize that they're not alone in a situation. And I think that's the huge thing. I mean, we've talked about things, and I think even I'm hoping people who are listening to this podcast who, experience similar things be like, hey, yeah, you're not alone. We've definitely experienced stuff like this. We've gone through these things. You're definitely not alone. And that's the biggest thing, because oftentimes we feel like we're alone, stranded on that island in our own thoughts. And then we just kind of start spiraling from there. Be able to open up and talk to somebody. And then from there, that person, can say, okay, I think you should, maybe talk to somebody. Like I said, it might be a thing like, I can listen, but this is one of those things where, yeah, maybe you need to look into therapy or some sort of psychologist and stuff like that. And the stigma around that too. I think some people think, well, it's been negatively stigmatized. It's like, oh, yeah, this person needs therapy. It's like, it's not a bad thing.
No,
it's not a bad thing at all.
I've had a lot of great help from therapy. That's the biggest thing, is trying to get that stigma of actually being able to reach out and to talk to somebody. And talk to your brothers, your sisters, and in the fireground. They will be able to help get you to where you need to be to get that proper help. We may not always have the answers, but we have the resources to get those answers for you. Because when it comes to stuff like this, we fight like hell when we're on the fireground. We fight to make sure everyone goes home. But unfortunately, once we get home, we have those demons to deal with. And some people don't have that support system. And that's where it's really crucial, especially for like men in general right now, with that whole alpha male, the whole, suck up your feelings things, is this needs to be taken care of. So unfortunately, if you spiral away from this, not only is this going to negatively affect you, it's going to affect anybody you care about, as well as your work in anything like that. So when it comes to stuff like that, it is crucial for you to be able to reach out to get rid of that stigma that, men don't talk about their feelings and stuff like that. Get rid of it, because we're here. We see shit. We see terrible things. But for us to be able to respond to this, to be able to live our lives, we need to be able to take care of ourselves. So if we can't do that, we can't take care of other people.
Absolutely. And I think a big thing with that as well is, sometimes don't wait until there is an issue. I mean, sometimes even just taking a bit of time ahead of it. Like one thing when I did, because we do have a mental health program through my department where I finally utilized, like we have quarterly check-ins with a psychologist, and she did awesome. Like it was the first time I had talked to anybody, therapist, anybody professionally in that sense. And help me work through some things. And it's like, she said, yeah, like a big thing is that people are always waiting until, you know, they've gone through stuff to start working on themselves. And it's like, sometimes too, just being able to, you know, get your mental health right even ahead of time, doing things that make you feel good, things that bring you into that right state of mind. Do a little bit of preventative maintenance on, because I mean, well, we do preventative maintenance on lots of things, whether it be equipment, whether it be our vehicles, whatever, and our bodies. I mean, like I said, there's things where we do to make ourselves healthy by exercising. But the thing is too, is practicing some of that self-care. I mean, like, hey, finding out the things that give you peace.
Exactly. And that's the big thing too, talking on it, is taking care of yourself, doing that preventative maintenance. So that's a big thing for myself. So especially when we've been super busy, work, fire related stuff, is I will take time to go and do things that I really enjoy. So it could be anything from going for just basic things like coffee with friends and stuff like that, to getting into some more of the physical sports I used to enjoy as a kid, stuff like that, just doing little things. And sometimes that's by yourself or with other people and stuff like that, is getting out and taking care of yourself, making yourself happy, going to rec rooms, going to puzzle rooms and stuff like that. But one thing I'd like to stress a little bit on is the support network of yourself or whoever is listening to this podcast. So when it comes to, you know, dealing with these unfortunate situations, these tragic calls and stuff like that, to have the proper support network to fall upon, whether that's your brothers and sisters, your fire department, your family, your friends and stuff like that, it is crucial to have those set in place so you have somebody to talk to. The one thing I will stress though, and this is something I've learned through a lot of heartache, is the stuff that we see on the fire ground is not for everybody. There's a lot of people who will not be able to understand that. And unfortunately, unless your partner is somebody who is in the know and who has dealt with this kind of stuff, just tread lightly on that. Don't rely on your partner as your catch-all for your issues, because that will actually cause a lot more issues down the line with your personal relationship. So when it comes to the support network, have that conversation with your significant other, whether it's your wife, boyfriend, husband, whoever. Tell them that, unfortunately, I'm going to have bad days. We're going to have bad calls. I would like to come to you with them, but they are things that I don't feel that we are able to communicate healthily to each other about, or for you to understand. So have that conversation with your significant other that during these crisis times, I will have to reach out to somebody else to try and get the help I need instead of trying to dump it on them. Because unfortunately, if you dump it onto that person, it could unfortunately cause them to go into a whole spiral, and it just causes so many issues with your relationship. So somebody who's been through that is something I would like to say to anybody out there. It's just, when you're creating your support network, be very cautious on who or what you dump on. I don't just completely cut your significant other out, because that will also cause other problems.
Absolutely, yeah.
They know and understand that when you are dealing with certain things from certain places, that unfortunately they may not be the right person to talk to.
Well, and that's the thing, like you said, it's setting up your network of people to rely on. And the other thing too, and here's the other part of it as well, is that don't assume that somebody can't handle what you need to talk to them. However, have that conversation ahead of time. Yeah, because sometimes too, we don't know where, you don't want to, and I mean, it's happened before. It's happened to my wife where she's had people come and trauma dump onto her. And then it's just, and then now she's in a tailspin. I've had people try, like, the thing is too, is if you're not, like, for example, you know, if, you know, you've just been, I've been on a bad call, but you've just been dealing with a string of bad calls. And I come to you and be like, hey man, I just need to talk. You got to be like, whoa, I can't take on what you need to put out there right now. I would love to, but I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with what you're about to talk about. So I can't be that person. So that's why, like I said, it's important to have not only one or two, like have that network of people, because there's going to be different things that we need to talk about, and, you know, building up that network. And I mean, and that's where, like I said, other things, like I said, talking to a therapist, talking to psychologist, psychiatrist. I always get those two mixed up. If I can get the stupid thing load up here. Or also we've got, you know, there's definitely numbers we can call. The number for boots on the ground is 1-866-724-7244. 2684. So there's a helpline there. And I mean, depending on the severity of the help that we need, I mean, if it's like that, but if you're in a really bad spot and you're not, there's also the suicide prevention hotlines. There's different resources depending on where it's at. Don't think that you're alone. There's resources out there, whether it's, like you said, it's that support network, professionals, or there's also like helplines and resources of that nature.
And the same thing, like talking on the boots on the ground as well as here in Saskatchewan, we have the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Association. They have their system network. I unfortunately don't have the number on hand, but you just have to Google that, and that is the system network here in Saskatchewan for volunteer firefighters. It's a great program, easy to, you just literally call, and they will help you with getting everything else set up, getting the proper help you need, especially as they are all volunteer firefighters or firefighters who have taken on that role as a system person. So there is a lot of resources out there for people. They just have to be able to know and know where to look for them.
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, that's where the education component is super important. Opening up this conversation. So, and I think this conversation's been great. Like we've definitely, I remember when I was like, hey, I'm going to shoot for an hour plus or minus by 15 minutes. So we've been on for over an hour and a half. So I think we've talked about some very important things. We talked about the highs, the lows, as many of our conversations typically are. Like I said, it's nice to see you kind of work through the, we talked about the, the happy stuff, but we also talked into some of the deep stuff and some of the important conversations that we want to get into. So I super appreciate you making time and coming on here, and especially for the inaugural
first episode.
It's like the Phantom Menace. We're episode 1 for the Star Wars nerds out there.
Yeah, May the 4th. But no, it's been a great episode. Definitely looking forward to being on next episode here or there. It involves, especially in kind of my field of expertise, but great episode, especially when we got to talk in on that mental health, because that's such a stigmatic thing right now. And great topic for episode number 1.
So on that note, Sask Rescue Guy, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at the Sask Rescue Guy on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube currently. You can also find me at Transcare Rescue. We are based out of Langham. We are a fire supply company as well as training, equipment, all that kind of fun stuff. We sell the cool knickknacks, gear, all that kind of stuff. But you have any questions about auto extrication, rescue, or anything kind of under that belt, feel free to hit me up. I deal with the Amicus Rescue Systems for Western Canada, so I'm kind of all over the place, but I will not hesitate to answer your questions. So look forward to talking to you guys kind of in the future on those kind of topics.
No, I appreciate it. I think it's a great conversation, and super excited to see where this podcast is going to go. Like I said, I'm super happy with how this interview went, and like I said, stay tuned for more. For those listening in, give this video a like, subscribe for more. This is going to be on YouTube and all the major podcast indexes, Apple, Spotify, everything like that. A little like for you is a big like for us. It helps promote the podcast, push it out further, helps get the word out there. So super appreciate everybody tunes in. Yeah. And any other, we're going to have I've got some great ideas lined up for going forward. Now that I've kind of shaken off the cobwebs and it's like, hey, cool. We got into it. So get awesome. The first one started.
Definitely going to share this as for everyone else. Share this video,
audio, whatever. Get the word. Get the word out there. It's super appreciated. So this was some blazing banter with Fire Steve. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, be sure to like, subscribe, all the fun stuff, and everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you very much, and have a good one.
Have a good one, guys.